We've run out of song. Keep playing, you silly, silly thing. I don't know if those are in there. Yeah, thank you. We got 20 seconds, 7 seconds left. Screw it. I'll just jump in. Hi, everybody. Welcome. How are you this fine morning? Is my microphone on? All good. Okay. Oops, this is what we don't want to have happen. There we go. We're trying to get Carl in here. Carl Alessi's going to be joining us this morning if the tech gods are with us. We're working that out right now. Oh, sorry. He reset and gets us unable to start the call. Mike, not seeing you. Okay, let's see. Unable to start the call. That shouldn't be a thing. I'm trying to... Okay, that's the interview chat. Let me do the interview guests. I see him up here. Let me give him... Make sure he's got the right link again. Interview is on. Ready to go. I've got... According to this... Hold on. According to this... Oops. Stop listening. There we go. According to this... We have mic mode's fine. Okay, just checking. The other link for Sparks on looks fine. Would you just okay? No, not. He should be in the Ecamm one. He should not be in the website one. That's why I'm in a whole different software because that wasn't working. I'm talking to the chat background. So we'll get there in just a second. Hi, everybody. Can I just, while we're working ourselves out, can we have a moment of joy? Can I just show you guys something in a second? Because I think, let's see. First of all, okay, there we go. Now I'm live. Excellent. All right, then we go to this business. Take this guy. Switch this over to that. Run this thing. Which I believe is the right thing. Hi, everybody. Hit that like. It's not working either one, by the way. We don't see. I should be up now on the stream, all in blackness. This is all this blackness is happening. This blackness. Should be good. Can he try another browser? That would be the other question. A Chrome-based one, probably best. Excellent. Okay. I'm working it out. I'm trying the best I can while still doing show stuff. Let me move this over here and stretch this out so you can see it because it's going to be hilarious. And I'll blow this up. Command plus. I'm going to show you something. Yeah, there we go. Go away. I don't want that. Go with. I don't know why it does that. Hold on. Well, heck. I'll just pull this off the screen here and use it myself. And use an image because I want to show you guys something. Let's see. Where's that? Desktop. Yeah, there we go. Yeah. Because now I guess, yeah, that's good. Close that guy. Go back to my software. Hopefully we'll get Carl in here. We'll make it happen. Don't worry. We'll by hook or by crook. It's okay. And then Rob Glenn will join us and not have to deal with the crazy fray of it all. But in the meantime, if I may, let's see, go back to here. Where are you silly thing? Yeah, there we go. So I'll drag this. I want to show you guys a picture. So there you go. It's gonna, yeah, there we go. Ladies and gentlemen, if I may, here we go. This is Donald Trump's crowd in the Bronx at a free event that had room for about 5,000 people. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Hal, that doesn't look full at all. The stage itself, I don't know why he has a catwalk all the way to the stage. Like, that's really weird. And it starts to make sense why yesterday when we were looking at the video, why he was pointing at the press but not telling them to turn around and look. And he was saying something about there's a line down the block to get in the place, which is clearly not even close to true. Just lovely. Let's see if we can move this in here and see if I can get, yeah, this business in here starting running. Go, you silly thing. Okay, we'll go back to here until that decides to start working. And we'll go to here. All right, and then I'm gonna try it. Like I said, let me give another shot at getting. I honestly don't know what the issue would be other than browser on his side. Okay, he is okay. Let me see. Okay, let's try this again. Let me do something else. It's going to create an audio loop that's going to blow my brains out, but you know, hey, it's what we do. There we go. Enter there. Let's see. Try to. Do I see him? No. I don't see him in that room. Let's see. Reload. Okay. Control room. Let's go to there. See if this works. I'm doing my best. I am. I'm operating on about 2 hours sleep as well, so that makes it even more fun trying to navigate this silliness. Okay, so all right, let's do another option. And you can see the same result. Neither goes unable to start. That's so weird. Okay. Oh wait, let me do one thing. Okay, I'll do this. And then I'll turn it back on. And then I don't know if it makes a new link when I do that, but I'll send it again. It probably is the same, but we'll try because it's it's a live stream. It's a Friday. Soon AI will fix all of this for us. Right, Rob? All right. Trying again. I just sent a new link in there. See if that works. Apologies to Carl for this, because I'm in LA and everything goes well. Thanks a lot, Water Goddess. My dog did not eat my computer, but Chip did. There we go. Hold on. By all means. Oh, the 3 black people in attendance were all interviewed on Fox News. Yeah, that's he didn't have the Blacks for Trump folks on. Okay, hopefully this link will work, Carl, and because I don't want to I feel like it's upsetting me that you are not getting your proper time on the show. So if we get past a certain point, we'll punt it to another day when I'm home. And yeah. My only worry is that Rob will have the same issue as far as guests this morning. And radio is tomorrow, which is not fun. So this should work. I would like this to please get working. Please work. You crazy thing. Why would you do such a thing? Let's see. Green screen. Should we do a mower? Okay. Waiting. Okay, resent it. We'll see. I keep waiting for that calling thing in the background to let me know a guest is on. Oh boy. Maybe Steiner wanted that. Penguin Walk. They start congestion pricing yet? Yes. Let's see. Good stuff. Hello there, Randy. Go to Jimmy's and borrow his Wi-Fi. I don't have that kind of money. Piece by piece. Hit that like, by the way, just because you're a masochist and you enjoy how difficult things are being for me. Same result. So weird. I don't know why. There's no particular reason. Okay. All right. I'm gonna hold on. I'm gonna make a whole new room for him. Wait 1 second. And we'll try this. And let's see. Guess he's the enter. Okay. Copy the link. I'm sending him a new link. We'll try this. Okay. See if this works. It's gonna. Again, I'm gonna be in a doom loop of audio, and I know it's gonna take some fixing, but we'll try. It's gonna be nuts. I just know it. I'm gonna bring in a browser source of audio, and I'm wearing headphones, and I will be deaf. And I hope you're all happy and proud of yourself. And I deafened myself just to try to get things working in this silly garage I'm sitting in. And let's see. Hold on, chat room. There you are. Mm-hmm. Go back. I see. Hold on. Back to live mode. That's what we want. Change this. It's fine. Okay. Thanks so much, Senor Space Costo. I appreciate that. I'm doing the best I can this morning. And it would be, am I in the Batcave? I'm Batman. No. All right, enable this. I'm gonna try to do this. Oh, I've got to turn on a virtual camera so that he could output. Virtual camera ready. Virtual mic is in use. Sharing window is off. Okay. Da-da-da. Okay. In theory, this should be in there. Da-da. ECam, virtual cam. Da-da. Okay. Pretty close. And then my audio is there. I don't want the eCam virtual. No. I do not want that. I want just this. Yeah. There we go. Because that would be really terrible. Oh, wait. Did I see something move? That would be so exciting if I did. Okay. The new link is sent. We'll see if this works. If not, I'm going to exhaust myself this afternoon trying to get the show ready for the radio show tomorrow, aren't I? Or I'm going to end up, after I drove all night to get here, I'm going to end up after my 10:30 show tonight at Flappers, getting in my car and driving back to LA or to Vegas just so that I can do my show from home where it will work. It's okay. It's all right. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's just fine. Oh, wait. There he is. I see Carl. I see Carl. I'm so excited.
Carl's not icy, but Carl's here.
Yes. Hold on one second.
Dear. That was an escapade.
Oh, man. Oh, yeah, absolutely. So let me see how I'm going to arrange. I have an idea. Okay. So let me go to this, back to preview mode, back to this business, and go to this thing. I think this will be the way I do it. Yeah. Okay. And then I will add a something or other. I will add a browser source, and then it'll be a nightmare. I think people can hear you, maybe.
Okay.
Yes.
Hopefully they can. I don't know.
They can, and they can indeed, and you can hear me. Okay, so in a moment they'll be able to see you, and I'm working on that diligently as we speak. And in this particular case, I have to create a browser source, and I have to throw this in here and call it. I'll call it Carl, and And I'll throw this in here and I'll paste this. And dear God, help us. This should work. As long as it doesn't forward the... Okay, let's try to take this here. And ladies and gentlemen, we might have success. Look at this. It's Carl.
Ah,
Look at that.
dear God, I don't
Oh,
believe it.
I know. Okay, hold on. I'm getting double audio, so hold on one second. I think I can shut this off and I still hear you.
Okay.
Go ahead. Yep. Check for me.
Okay, check.
Yeah, good.
Test.
Cool. So,
All right.
I was worried there'd be a slapback and all that business, but you're with us, and that's all that matters. And hello, Carl, and hi this morning, and hello. And I owe you a mulligan after all we've gone through. Good Lord.
Oh man, I'm just glad to be here, and I really thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. Now, in all this, my head is all full of Blue Origin, SpaceX, the and some of the new NASA missions. So, what would you like to talk about first, and then we'll get to that.
Okay, well, out of the new stuff, we could talk a little bit about the Boeing CST-100,
Mm-hmm.
I suppose,
Yes.
because that's been hot and heavy in the news lately for its delays, unfortunately. We've had another one,
The
latest
Starliner.
word, yeah, Starliner,
Yep.
that's its name.
And then the Dreamcatcher, I have to say, which is a lovingly silly name for a spaceship, but I don't mind. Is a I gotta say, like, when I saw the mock-up of it in Huntsville when I was down there a couple of years ago, like a couple of years before COVID, I was very excited to see that thing finally get off the ground, and they seem to have, they kind of pushed it aside for a while, and now they're bringing it back because they're really, they got the funding, I suppose.
Okay, I
Yeah,
don't recognize that one. It sounds like a Native American spacecraft,
it
but I
is. Yes, right. It is. It's the one you hang over your bed so that you don't have nightmares.
exactly.
Yeah. I'll try and dig up a picture of it if we can. But the Starliner, I think, is the interesting thing about that is it looks like the old, like, Gemini and Apollo crafts in its own way. It doesn't look like they're reinventing the wheel with
Hmm.
with it. It's, for those that don't know, it's just kind of it looks like an old-fashioned capsule, just a newer, shinier version of it.
You're not talking by any chance about, hang on a second here,
Oh boy.
the Orion spacecraft, are
Yes,
you?
I am, exactly. So the front part
Okay,
of
because I
that,
didn't recognize Dreamcatcher at all.
no, that's not what I'm talking about with the other one. But I am talking about that in terms of the CST 100. Looks
Okay.
looks very much like that without its additional accoutrement.
Yeah, it does look a bit like that. It
Hmm.
has its solar arrays in the base of the service module and conforms to the base rather than what Orion has, where
Right.
they're sticking out in four arrays like an X-wing fighter.
Mm-hmm. And by the way, I will say Boeing has very cool space uniforms. If people haven't seen them, they're like blue. They look like something straight out of, I guess, my main talking point, which is of course For All Mankind. Carl
Yeah,
Alessi,
yeah.
expert on all things early NASA, especially. Thoughts on For All Mankind?
Oh dear God,
And it's getting
you're going
you
to
in
get me in
trouble.
trouble again.
Totally. Yeah.
This is like I just got caught kissing somebody's sister and they came after me with a shotgun
Yes.
when I
If you
uh,
criticize it at all, yeah.
yeah, I mean, the only thing I can tell you is that the concept was not really for me
Uh huh.
because I grew up being in love with what really happened
Yes.
and how we really succeeded at what we tried to do, as opposed to uh, letting the Russians, the Soviets, beat us to the moon. It
Right.
doesn't mean I think it's bad. I don't that it's not good, that people shouldn't enjoy it, not in the least. It's like a lot of things in life. They're just not for me.
Uh huh.
So I can't give you too much of response to that because I watched a couple of episodes and went, well, I think I'll go back to watching the documentary or something.
Right.
It's just,
Well, Summer watched the entire thing. My girlfriend, she's a big NASA head. Obviously, she went to space camp when she was a kid, and we're both very, we're very pro NASA. very excited about the future of this. And you've heard me say this before, but I truly believe it, that I think if human beings are responsible for sending up a spaceship that diverts an asteroid that would destroy all life on Earth, we have fulfilled our mission as a species on behalf of all other species here. We were worth the trouble as a species if we're able
Mhm.
to do that simple task. It may
Yeah.
indeed be that life on Earth has evolved a special species of animal to go through all this crap just so that we could flick away the next asteroid, after the one that killed the dinosaurs. And
Exactly.
yeah, exactly. I think NASA is our highest use. As humans, it's our highest functional use. You know,
Yeah, and it's doable. I mean, what you're talking about
yeah.
are referred to as NEOs, for near Earth objects,
Mm-hmm.
that NASA and others are busy tracking to make sure that we don't have an impact. It does get a little scary because some of these things come out of the cosmic shooting gallery relatively quite close to us.
Mm-hmm.
And it wouldn't take something very large to create, hitting in the right place in particular, to cause a real planetary disaster or even a mass extinction event like we had 66 million years ago,
Right.
which ended the Cretaceous period. So, yeah, that's quite critical. And it certainly would prove that we're worth our salt as a species if we could stop it from happening.
Yeah.
But doing
If we
that
were
depends
able to
on protection.
protect life on Earth, again, every aspect of our existence, every single thing we've ever done just led up to that one moment. I think it was Neil Armstrong, I believe, who said he wasn't the first man on the moon because he was special. It was because of circumstance. That so many weird things had to happen for him to be the guy. It wasn't that, oh my God, the perfect man has been born. Finally, we can go to the moon and put him on the moon. That's sort of the ad absurdum version of the argument for the first person ever to do something, a Magellan and kind of character, or somebody discovering a land because they were stupid enough to build a boat and go across the seas and see if there was something there. But in the case
Mhm.
of the moon landing, there were so many factors over so much time, and it was only by the luck of the draw that he was on that uh, that particular mission and not in the capsule that exploded, for example. Just it was literally, and I believe what the Gemini ones, it was in the, you know, he could have very well been assigned to that day.
Yeah, any of them could. In
Right.
fact, the backup crew, any member of that crew for Apollo 1, which is what you're referring to, could
Yep.
have been assigned to it, including the man that I sat next to at dinner for a few years ago, Jim McDivitt,
Mm-hmm.
who was the backup commander on that.
Right.
And that disaster was um, highly improbable in a sense in and of itself, and also highly probable. Highly improbable from the
Yep.
standpoint of NASA's point of view, because pumping up a cabin to 16 psi of pure oxygen is something they had always done. They had done it in Gemini, they
Yep.
had done it in Mercury, they did it on the X-15. They never had a problem with it.
Right.
Why are they doing that? Because you're using a single gas environment. Why do that? Well, because it's simple rather than a mixed gas environment.
Yep.
We've never had a problem. And the day of that test for Apollo 1, they called it a plugs out test, no fuel in the rocket. They're not going to expect anything to go wrong until it catastrophically did.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, you're right. Any of them could have been in the cabin that day. Um, and it just happened to be, unfortunately, those three particular men, Grissom, White, and Chaffee.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Armstrong, I think, was one of the most touching things I've ever heard that came out of his mouth, was that idea, was because he was saying that, like, I could have been in that capsule and blown to pieces, and they could have been the first person on the moon, any one of them, because they were
Sure.
my fellow astronauts. They were,
Mhm.
smart, brilliant, hardworking, as focused as you could be. It didn't matter in that circumstance. Life interjected and took them.
Yeah,
And
real good chance it would have been Gus Grissom because
mm-hmm.
of his experience and the fact that he had a in with Deke Slayton, who he
Yeah.
was one of the Mercury 7 with, and Deke was the guy that picked the crews.
Yeah.
So I think that very likely could have happened, but
Mm-hmm.
it didn't happen, unfortunately. And those three men did not burn to death, by the way. There's kind of a common myth or misperception that they did. Their burns were not lethal, But what happens when you have a raging inferno like that is that it builds up pressure in the capsule. It caused the capsule, the command module, to rupture. You started getting a tremendous amount of black smoke coming out of that, and that got sucked right into the environmental control system, and they asphyxiated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and also the impact of it, because the initial concussion of the impact of the explosion or the fire that was in there, because it was in a contained environment, shuttered the outside of it. So there was a, they may have been knocked unconscious, and only breathing, effectively knocked
Yeah,
out
they
when that
had
happened.
no chance, Hal.
No.
They didn't, because the original design of that particular command module, and what's called the Block One command module, is a three-piece hatch with the pressure hatch opening inward.
Into. Yeah.
Right.
Right.
So Ed White actually was trying to get it open. His body
Yeah.
was found towards the base of the hatch. He was a rather strong guy, for as an astronaut. They
Hmm.
all were, but
But they're all
he was
smaller than
trying to get
usual.
it open.
They're all not big people. That's the thing about astronauts too, is in the history of humanity, we have had a evolutionary and technological arc that has driven us towards being great cat people. No, that has driven us driven us towards being the biggest and the strongest. If you think of the
Mhm.
survival of the fittest in these circumstances, this in this particular case, the fittest person for astronaut work is not particularly tall and not particularly muscular in a lot of
Mhm.
ways,
No.
because it's a lot of extra weight. It's a lot of extra, protein that you need to maintain your body mass. It's when you're sleeping, because you don't have gravity acting on you, stronger muscles will contract while you sleep in compensatory movement and give you, you know, cramps. You could dislocate your own shoulders if you're strong enough, that kind of stuff, because it's just, the body reacting to it. So very normal people, many of them under what, 5'6" was the, something like
The
that.
max for Mercury, and again, these guys had to be small. I
Yeah.
mean, the joke in Mercury was we didn't fly that spacecraft, we wore it.
Yeah.
And the max was 5'11", which is what John Glenn was, if
Right.
memory serves. So yeah, they had that very tight constraint. They had a lot of tight physical constraints, many of them for perfection in their vision and so on.
Hmm.
And they couldn't find anything wrong with them, or else you get grounded like the Slayton did, because they thought they heard a heart murmur.
Right.
So yeah, that's your max height there, is a 5'11" at that time. Of course,
Right.
that's no longer enforced.
Yes. Um, and also I want to make sure that everybody knows. Check out searching for Skylab. I just put the. Hold on, I'll make the link a little bigger because it's not. There we go. Whoops. Sorry.
Hey, I found it.
Hey, there you go. Yeah. So it's just searching for skylab.com. You can see that I just put the link up there, but it's also in the chat room. And um, tell everybody what attracted you to the project of searching for Skylab, and why it's kind of a passion project, and what about it makes it kind of a special, like a special step forward for humanity.
Well, in terms of what attracted me to it, Dwight Stephen Bonetsky, who was the godfather, producer, director of the film, asked me to do it after I wrote an article that he read, and he said, Carl, that's the best effing space article I've ever read. So he wanted me to write for him,
Mm-hmm.
and so thank you for that, Dwight. If you're out there, I'm not sure if he's in chat or not.
Mm-hmm.
So far as an attraction to Skylab goes that we all have, of course, I grew up with that program too, just like I did with Mercury, Gemini, and
Right.
Apollo. One of the main things about that program, again, that I find personally fascinating is how it confronted disaster practically during the launch phase, and how NASA jumped in, improvised, and fixed it. Because for those of you that are not familiar with what Skylab was about, it was our first space station. It was fashioned out of the third stage of a Saturn V. It was to be occupied by 3 different crews, and it's solar powered. And when it was launched, they had an accident that ripped off an entire micrometeoroid and thermal shield from around the orbital
Mm-hmm.
workshop, tore off one of the main solar arrays, and
Right.
caused the other one to be pinned against the OWS, so it could never deploy. Now, you have the clock ticking when that happens, because now it's getting hot inside of it. there's no crew inside yet,
Mm-hmm.
but there are things in there that start to spoil: film, experiments, food, all of this stuff. And it's not habitable because it's getting up to well over 100 degrees.
Mm-hmm.
So they improvised a solution to go up with a parasol type of device.
Mm-hmm.
You can kind of see it in this model a little bit here.
Mm-hmm.
This little gold shield. There
Yeah.
happened to be a little scientific experimental airlock in the side of right in the middle of where that missing shield was. They poked that parasol up through it, deployed it out, pulled it back flush against the hull of the ship, and it started cooling down and it became
Wow.
habitable again. And Bob's your uncle.
That's amazing. Yeah. Um, just think about like one of the things I thought was fascinating. We've all saw it in Apollo 13, and most people focus on the Houston "we have a problem" moment, but the solving of the problem is the most beautiful thing about NASA stories.
Yes.
And it is, I would argue it's one of the things that makes The Martian such a good movie in that regard,
Hmm.
because the entire movie is based on that principle. Just solve the problem that's right in front of you. Don't catastrophize. Don't
Hmm.
think there are 5 problems in this, there are 10 problems. Just solve the one in front of us. We'll get to the next one after. So it's like a wonderful lesson in prioritization, focus, and optimism, really. It's like if we
Yeah, it's and have those decisions often have to be made in a split second.
yes.
I was thinking earlier today about the Apollo 12 flight, and during that flight, for those of you who don't know, which happened in November of 1969, they launched into a thunderstorm,
Mm-hmm.
and the launch vehicle was hit twice by lightning, which caused all their instrumentation to go out, caused the 8 balls that they have for judging attitude to start spinning.
Mm.
Most of their windows are covered, and as Pete Conrad said later, he goes, I couldn't figure out whether or not we were heading towards the moon, or we were on our way of sending $160 million of going to the moon into the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
So he could have pulled the abort handle, but he didn't. He just said, "Hey, gang, I don't know what happened here. We just had everything in the world drop out." Jerry Griffin, who was the flight director, he was the guy that was in the seat that Gene Kranz was in for Apollo 13.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. Was sitting next to me at a lunch once, and another flight director said, "Jerry, how close were you to calling an abort on Apollo 12?" And he went, "About that close."
Right.
Literally,
Yeah.
I'll never forget that moment. He could have, but he didn't. The Saturn kept flying on its own because even though the command service module has lost its orientation and lost a lot of electrical, the Saturn had its own computer, its own inertial guidance, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it kept flying straight and true until they worked their way through the problem.
Right.
So sometimes you need to do nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's like I love. I think you and I've talked about this. I love the movie First Man on so many fronts.
So do I.
And on a personal level, I find it to be a treatise on stoicism that is a
Yes.
lesson for all people. That when you are confronted with the inevitable awful that life will throw your way, the sort of steady character and focus of Neil Armstrong, in that movie and what he went through is nothing short of extraordinary, just as a
Hmm.
human being. And the ability to just kind of in the moment with all the stuff spinning around, like all the factors, the entire world watching, and the brand new celebrity that was attached to this whole thing, and his wife and kids being on the ground, and maybe he's not going to come back, and his friends just dying, and all these things. He managed to keep his head in many crucial moments, but the one that really stands out to me is when the ship started spinning out of control, and they were yeah, in Gemini 8, and they were edging towards losing consciousness. He had a certain amount of time where if it keeps spinning, there's just nothing physically you can do. You've got
Hmm.
this amount of time at this speed. After 45 seconds, you're gonna black out. You're just gonna. There's no choice. So in his
Hmm.
head, he's going on muscle memory because he learned every piece of that ship. Like he knew it backwards and forwards, and he could run anything on it blind effectively.
Hmm.
And just what that scene in particular, and his partner, who was his
Dave
partner?
Scott.
Yeah, Dave Scott. Dave Scott blacked out. You know,
Not really. That's
is
a
it
liberty they took.
okay?
But
All right, yeah. So, but he was not able to assist in it, I guess is the point. You know, that they made he missed he was like, I guess he was holding on to part of what he was doing, but it was Armstrong who was basically like figuring it out in that 40 seconds that they had before they
mhm.
would die to
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And what happened is that they had done the very first docking with an Agena vehicle. Nobody had ever docked two vehicles together before. Neil was the first person to do that as well.
right.
A critical step to going to the moon later when you had to dock a command module to a lunar module.
Mm-hmm.
So they had done that, but what happened was is that a thruster in the Gemini vehicle became stuck and put
Yeah.
them into a yaw and roll motion.
Ugh.
And they thought at first, because they've been warned that possibly that kind of thing might happen with the Agena they were docked to,
Yeah.
that if you have problems like that, undock. Neil undocks, and the problem immediately gets worse because
Yeah.
the problems with the Gemini. And so now it's just the mass of the Gemini vehicle. They finally started to roll, or rather yaw, I should say,
Yeah.
and roll
Yeah.
at about 1 revolution per second.
Yeah.
You're not only going to black out, but pretty soon the vehicle is going to break up under those kinds of loads.
Right.
So Neil was able to cut that thruster and stabilize the vehicle by invoking a reaction control system that normally is only used for reentry. And if you ever look at the footage of this out the window, they had a camera running, you'll see these jets firing in front of the window that stabilize the vehicle. Unfortunately for them, mission rules said, hey, if you're using the reentry system like that for any reason, like an emergency, you've got to abort the flight. And so they had to abort in the Pacific.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say it was somewhere off of Okinawa, although that may be kind of wrong because it's a big ocean.
Right.
And they had to pick both of them up. And, that was the end of the flight at that point. But they had at least demonstrated they could dock successfully.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like there are certain like movie scenes that consistently move me every time I see them, and that one of of the entire film. I mean, there's a lot of great stuff, and I famously, the scene where he's standing by the pool after they've had the basically the wake for the guys who died. He's over there, and one of the guys comes over and says, "Hey, your wife said you might want to talk to somebody," and he goes, "Think I'm standing here by myself in the yard, basically, because I want to talk to somebody." And his point was, I'm not doing any of this by accident. I'm alone because I need
Mhm.
to be alone right now, and we're gonna
Mhm.
die if we don't if we can't keep it together. So I'm basically practicing keeping it together. I'm here doing measurements or whatever. But the essence of that story point is is that we're not there is no help up there. There will be no help. It'll just be us. And it's more dangerous now, and they're more keenly aware of how dangerous it is now looking at this. And it is, yeah,
Yeah. There is no direct help.
yeah,
There is, of course, help, lots of it from mission control, but intermittently when you were in Earth orbit at that time, because when you drifted between communication stations, there was often a large blackout. So that could render a situation like that, ironically, somewhat more dangerous in Earth orbit than going to the moon or coming back from it when you had continuous communication.
right.
But yeah, this is the kind of thing that people are going to hate me for again. But that scene you're referring to was again another invented scene.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah, it was
but
meant to encapsulate kind of his
yeah,
focus, though. I agree. Like
mhm,
the poetry of that movie is not about the kind of the realism of stuff because they had to break down several years in a couple of hours. So you're always going
sure,
to take liberties in that regard. You're going to
sure,
truncate the ideology into something that conveys the point. Like in All the President's Men, nobody ever said just follow the money.
no,
That was an
that's
invention of the
William
screenwriter.
Goldman's invention, right?
But
Bill Goldman.
but it in that moment conveys in general what Deep Throat was talking about. In general, what they were finding as the thread. It was just a line that encapsulated for brevity's sake in some ways. Yeah.
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 By the way, failure is not an option.
Yes.
Also an invention of the screenwriter. Although Gene Kranz adopted it for his autobiography, I will
Right.
say. But yeah, no, I have no problem with the idea of having to take certain liberties with things,
Mm-hmm.
and fully understand that adaptations to film are adaptations to film. But
Right.
I just thought I would bring that up. There, I had a conversation, as I was telling you, with Jim Hansen, who wrote the book with Neil. I got to talk to him for about a good half an hour once,
Right.
and we talked about a whole scene that was shot that was true to life.
Mm-hmm.
When Neil and his family were in the program, they were in Houston, they were in their house asleep, and their house catches fire, and the house burns down. And Neil is trying to get both of his sons, Mark and Rick, out of the house. And one of the sons kind of disappeared. And when he finally got the kid out and got him outside, he's just saying, "What? Why don't you come when I told you to come? You've got to do what I tell you. You've got to come when I tell you." And it's a scene that was interesting from the standpoint that it shows a little bit more range or color in Neil's emotional makeup than we saw in a lot of the film. But even though they burned a whole house down to shoot that scene, they cut the entire
Mm-hmm.
sequence for time, which is too bad.
Yeah. I'm more forgiving about especially the highly technical movies doing that than I am about like Elvis movies and the like, because there's no reason for it. In highly technical movies, you have elements of it that the audience is incapable of understanding, so you can't even focus on what the problem might have been without giving a science class in the middle of it. And they try sometimes, and I appreciate that. Like there's a couple of them, especially in Apollo 13 and even in For All Mankind, they're very science heavy in it, which I appreciate. Even though the history's off, they almost compensate by how much they're on board with the science.
Mhm. Yeah, and
Um,
good for them too to do it.
yes. Hmm.
Again, I can't speak to it in depth because I've only seen a couple of the episodes on that one. But Apollo 13, I can talk about because, of course, I've seen it many times.
Right.
And they even though there are some things that are not accurate and some things where they took liberties and needed to, they did things to increase the drama, the tension between the crew, which didn't really exist. All of those sorts of things. It's just a brilliant movie, and they went to a huge effort for verisimilitude
Hmm.
in that film, including filming the scenes while they were really weightless,
Right.
inside of the command service module LEM mock-up that they
Hmm.
had. Well, listen to the way I talk. This is what, the kind of thing that John Fugelsang calls girl repellent. Um,
Well, I do the same thing. I like and it's how, Rob Glenn and I started talking about AI together, because it isn't necessarily here's the thing about NASA, and I think the beauty of searching for Skylab, I think it's the beauty of the movies that we're talking about in particular, um, is they make it palatable that you can understand the extraordinary scientific advancements that are made that all of us take for granted. The phone camera that you have came from NASA funding. The trying to make cameras that could film in space, and the lenses involved and all that kind of stuff. And
Cordless drills.
yes, yeah, cordless drills, absolutely. Like there's so many parts of our regular daily life that only exist because and by the way, when we talk about how it's like the phone camera, there's an element of like, it feels like almost consumerist in regard to that. But that's the one to one where people can kind of understand that it's the reason it's in such a great camera's in your pocket now. But it means that all the other cameras in the world, the ones that shoot nature documentaries and the ones that shoot your favorite films and the ones that are capable of the pixel level that's necessary to see um, you know the kind of detail you'd need for CGI in a major motion picture. Those exist largely because of NASA.
Mhm.
And there's a
And
yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, I mean, the technology, of course, started at a very relatively primitive level for them. I mean, the cameras that they were using in things like the lunar orbiter spacecraft, which was a precursor to Apollo, which was put into orbit around the moon and did photographic surveys.
Mhm.
Well, those photographic surveys consisted of being able to take photographs of the moon, develop them on board to film, and then scanning the film, slow scan, and then transmitting that over a data link
Yeah,
back to Earth. I mean, so you don't have real high resolution with that, but you had some that was way higher resolution you'd
that's
ever
right.
get with a telescope, for instance. The computers, of course, we could go on and on and on about how
The advances that
revolutionary
had to
they
be
were
made.
for the time, but very, very primitive compared to what we have now.
Right. Well, Carl, I feel bad because we shaved off a couple of minutes at the top, but we got a couple of minutes at the end, which is good. And I hope I will see you tonight in Burbank.
You
If we can
will.
catch up, great. Maybe we'll have a bite to eat beforehand or something like that. And
You let me know.
yeah,
Yeah, we're going to be there,
I'm gonna
Joyce and
try and
I,
be
and
awake. That's my goal. I'm gonna try and be awake for the show.
yeah,
So, but thanks so much. Everybody go check out searchingforskylab.com and watch the movie, buy it, own it. And the other thing too is absorb what it's about and absorb like just the amazing like I said, the greatest leap forward and the main reason why humans might actually exist is so that we flick away the next planet destroying asteroid on behalf of all the sardines and rats and elk and everybody else who can't put spacecraft in the sky.
mhm.
We're that's if that's all we're here for, it's pretty friggin' awesome.
Yes. Well, someday that's probably going to be the case. I mean, we will have to be able to deflect an asteroid. So
Yep,
let's keep working on that Earth defense system and
that's
develop
right.
that technology and have it ready to go when we need it.
That's right. Well, thanks so much, Carl, and I will see you again very soon. I'll see you tonight. But
You'll see us tonight.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I'll
And
also bring you on here, again at some point if we can. And as like Blue Origins launches get closer together, it looks increasingly like they're trying to snipe out SpaceX's contracts from NASA. And considering Elon Musk's behavior of late, I think that's a very strong possibility.
yeah, they've
So,
got a new rocket that they're developing called New Glenn, which is a heavy lifter to
yeah,
replace the New Shepard. And so, and of course, they are working on a competitive system for a human landing system to get to the moon's surface, which I think is great instead of just relying upon Starship
yeah.
to do it. And we could that's a long
I'm just
conversation by
I'm just
itself.
worried that it'll go to Rob Glenn's head. That that. So thank you so much, Carl, and I will see you this evening. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you
Okay,
later
stay in
on.
touch, and I'll see you tonight.
Will do. Okay, thanks so
Okay,
much. There
bye
we go.
bye.
Bye. There it goes. Carl Alessi, everybody. Look at that. Hold on, let me get this out of here, and then I will. Let me grab Rob Glenn and bring him in here. It'll take me a moment, but I can do it. I know I can do it. Here we go. Let's see. It's in here. Open this up. There we go. There you go. Paste that in there, and then I think 3, 2, 1, poof. There we go. So almost there. Give me 1 second. Mm-hmm. And save. And then there he is, ladies and gentlemen. Rob Glenn joining us. He's not. He didn't work on searching for Skylab, but I feel like we owe them. We could just leave that up during the show today, so people can check it out at their leisure, as it were. How are you this fine morning?
I'm great. You're taking you a bit of time to work it out, but you got it, man.
I did. I did. I mean, it's. Whew, yeah, it was a lot. I mean, I was on Steph's show this morning, and I thought I was going to be on for a half hour, and they had me on for the whole hour, which is great, no complaints. But I was like, all
Yeah.
right, I'll have an extra half hour to get back to the house, because that's how long it'll take me, and I did not. So I get back in here, and I'm like, everything will work fine. I mean, it was just same links, there's same shit. It worked last week, it'll be fine. No, just sweep the leg, Johnny, as
It's
per
all
usual.
good. It's all good.
It totally is. So, couple of things. We talked a little bit last week about ChatGPT Omni, which is now officially working its way out. Have you had a chance to play with it at all?
Yes, I
I
use
yeah.
3.5 for a long time, and I switched over to 4.0 Omni.
Oh, you
And
skipped 4.
yeah, I didn't even touch 4.
Yeah, that's impressive.
Why spend my time with that?
Yeah, that's 4. What kind of why don't we talk about the Edsel while we're at it? I mean, God,
Yeah.
the 4.
Yeah. So I've always known.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm well connected with people that use 4 and have like are really deep in using all the different
Right.
things out there. So I'm very, very familiar with what is possible with 4 and 4.0. So then now that 4.0 became effectively free,
Mhm.
I was like, I'm gonna go to town and try all this stuff.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's the crazy part about it is it became free really fucking quick.
yeah,
Like it's and again, I gotta say, I'm increasingly getting more and more bullish about its value for the average human by the week because again, the elimination of tedium and the ability to have a team if you can't afford one and a tutor in an area where you do not know something is just extraordinary. Is there a problem with
yeah,
we had our first deepfake arrest last week, which was this dude who worked for Dean Phillips's campaign, who put together a Joe Biden robocall, and he went
yep,
to jail for it because the same laws apply. If he'd hired somebody who does a killer Joe Biden impersonation and done that, he'd have gone to jail then too. The other guy probably would have gone to
yes.
jail with him. But
Yes, that's a perfect example of what we've been talking about. And
yeah,
my point originally, which was, yeah, the laws are already there. If you defame someone or if you fake somebody, there's laws that allow you to be prosecuted for that.
yep,
So the laws are there. The laws that aren't there yet are kind of on the training side and maybe regulating the companies. Sorry,
right.
there's a police car or something going by. Sorry.
Yeah, it's RoboCop. Clearly RoboCop. I think it's
They're
RoboCop.
coming after me.
Yeah, that's right. you're a digital outlaw. Yeah. So I'm fascinated. There is I am right now as we speak downloading the ChatGPT app for desktop
Okay.
that is available, and it's only available on the Mac, which I found stunning.
Interesting.
Yeah, and then there is another, I guess, an aspect of where you can connect your Google Drive or your Microsoft OneDrive to ChatGPT now, so it can reference everything that's in it for you and help you sort through
Nice.
stuff and I don't know, spy on you. Again, there's a lot of privacy concern issues that people have, but I really do go. You do realize you can. First of all, computers are so cheap compared to what they used to be. You could have one computer that you just use for work, that doesn't have any of your personal browser history in it, that has its own, browser and set up for it. And in Safari, you can specifically set up different user types. And if you have Safari on another computer, you don't have to have all of those available. You don't have to log into them on every computer. So on the laptop that has your AI, you just only have the work stuff. Or only have
Yes.
the family friendly stuff, as it were, and that's all it will draw from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for me right now, what we've done here is we have a number of different we have a history of chat with 3.5.
Yes.
And so maybe this is a place where, most people who haven't paid for the additional 4 might, correlate some of this stuff.
Right.
But so we had a long history, and we would create a different chat for, whatever it is we were looking to try to talk to it about or ask about or research or whatever. And then once 4.0 became live, it's then in the memory, like all the stuff that we've talked about with it before is in the memory, and you can reference it. And we tried that. We tried actually specifically knowing what we were asking about. Hey, ask a specific question about a specific thing that we previously talked about.
Yeah.
And it did that. So then I went, this is super nerdy, but I went and I was like,
I love it.
Like, I want you to know who I am. So, like to your point,
Yeah.
I'm a person, Rob Glenn, but I run a company, Root Design. Root Design has a website. There's quite a few pages on the website. So I started figuring out how can I have it parse my whole website
Yeah.
and then talk to it about what it thinks I should do or I don't know, marketing or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that led me down a whole rabbit hole of like, how do I convert the whole website into text, which I then did, and then create an XML file, upload the whole thing, and now it knows what root design is.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with that. Like
Nope.
that's it's public information, right? So
Well, that's
um,
where it's most useful is
right,
in your public facing self. I don't think,
exactly,
and again, I think one of the areas where people get nervous is like there are aspects of it, like the Pi AI that we've talked to, where people are having personal conversations or they're using it as a shrink, and therefore
right,
they're worried that it will get out or that it will be used and violate their privacy because somebody will see what they talked about with it. Now, on the one hand, ChatGPT answered that with creating offline chats.
exactly,
This chat is not to be shared anywhere else. And then when it's done, it's gone forever. It doesn't even remember those aspects. Now, maybe that's not good for you if you're trying to, do some talk therapy with it because you want it to remember these things for a period of time. But
yep,
if you're worried about it, that's a solution. If you're not worried about it,
yes,
I think increasingly, maybe this is just the reality of it, that as AI moves forward and we integrate it more with ourselves, a lot of what we would consider the social sin kind of laws are going to go away. Like, removing pot from Schedule 1 or people being allowed to be openly gay in our society. Part of that is because of the lack of privacy in our modern world that was well before AI showed up, and
yes,
now is going to be crucial because I think AI is ultimately, if it's going to make any decisions at one point by looking at data, it's going to go, yeah, a lot of people do that shit, way more than you think, and therefore, why is it a crime? They do it, they do it without massive self-harm. They do it, on a, and it doesn't interfere with their lives. Can't be directly related to divorce rates or hospital visits. So no harm, no foul. And you're going to have a lot of laws that go that way so that people can speak openly about it. So if you're like, I think I have a problem with amphetamines or pot or whatever, if it got out, people would go, yeah, some people, can use it and they, it's weird. They're okay, but other people not. And our openness will be, part and parcel to that lack of privacy in some areas. But you can always hide it.
yeah,
You can always just go, I don't share this with a computer. That's possible.
right,
Millennials don't know
yeah,
how to
and
do it, but
one of my sort of like global things when I talk about manufacturing and product development and stuff like that is globalization
yeah,
was I mean there's a lot of bad stuff to it, but a lot of things that maybe should be changed, let's call it that.
sure.
But one of the good things about it is that there's a whole bunch of Chinese people who were who were taught enough to communicate with US people so that they could interact with them in a way to start doing manufacturing product. So that interaction of people
Yes.
led to a whole bunch of Chinese people directly communicating with a whole lot of US people. And those people are like, hey, what? I don't understand. What you're telling me all this stuff about how bad the US is, but the guy that I talk to seems fine.
Yep.
Like we watch TV, we watch YouTube, like we learn about these things, and all of a sudden, there's that book, The World is Flat, which I don't really like a lot, but the point is that the more you flatten it out, the more you interact with people, the more you realize that everybody's all pretty much the
Yeah.
same, like
Exactly.
they all have feelings and they're human beings, and hey, and I mean, we haven't really talked about this a lot, but maybe like the beginnings of democracy had like privacy was a thing that needed to be established, like as a concept
Yeah.
for democracies to start to flourish. And we're almost at a point now, I think, and this is probably pretty controversial, where privacy is starting to shift. Like the definition of privacy is changing as we are so deeply connected with our technology.
Right.
So what is private, and what are our feelings about those things? Those are pretty
Hey,
like fundamental things that we need to start thinking about and dealing with.
Right.
And unfortunately, like these LLMs are like really making us do that.
Right.
now.
Well, yeah, we're making us confront that part of it. It's in the same way that I think social media is making us confront how many kind of conspiracist idea viruses were actually humping along in the background. Because again, like the QAnon people, some people might have been newly introduced to the QAnon world and were dragged into it by a volume because of social media. But the principles behind it, the kind of the like Jews are behind everything. There's a cabal. There's a Illuminati kind of group that runs everything. Like that shit has been around for so goddamn long, but we kind of shrug it off because it's humming in the background at about 2%, right? That and now, that's very that's that now you can't avoid looking at, oh my God, not only is there a social contagion aspect of this, the more people that find out about it, the more it kind of grows, but it has also a glass ceiling on top of it that it will never surpass. So it's always going to have like a 12% dumbass quotient that we're going to have to go, all right, well, we're going to have to deal with that somehow. And how do we do it? We got to shut some people down who are ambulatory and argumentative and are capable of just believing this bullshit till the end of time. And then you got to start helping other people kind of extract themselves from the cult. There's multiple paths out of this, right? The same thing with, ChatGPT and our relationship with computers. We have one. We've had one for years. Where, everybody holds, like your phone, you're like, you feel weird if you leave your house and your phone isn't with you. How is that different from being reliant on her in the movie?
Right.
It's not.
It's no different. It's the same. It's just a different
delivery
integration
system.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah. So I didn't know you were in LA, but I did set up my screen to be shared.
You can do that.
Should I break the screen or stream?
No, you can't do it. It'll be fine. It's totally good. I'm going to move this out of the way so you have more room. There you go.
I mean, I'm going to kind of change the subject a bit. I listened to your talk with Bob Seska.
Oh, good. Yeah.
I did not know that Bob Seska was previously an animator.
Yeah.
That's pretty interesting.
It's great.
So he understands kind of the art side of things. So last week you asked me one thing that I use and one of the ones that I wanted to I think is an easy one to sort of digest for everybody is we use a product called Krea. It's KREA .ai. That's the website, and it's an image generation tool. So it's Gen AI for images,
right?
And it's based on Stable Diffusion. So Midjourney is the one that you have on. A lot of people know what Midjourney is. Stable Diffusion and Midjourney are similar.
Right.
Hey there.
We run a Stable Diffusion local on our servers here, but this is a website that we use.
Right.
Using that. So anyway, the reason I want to bring it up is, and I'm combining it with the Bob Seska stuff, is because Bob started to talk about as an artist, how are you actually being an artist, right? And before we start freaking out about how it's going to take all of our jobs, let's talk about what it means to be an artist and how you're actually producing art, And Krea is an interesting one. So let me click over to this and see if it works.
Okay.
All right. There you go. Didn't bring down the stream at all.
Look at that.
Okay, so this is Krea's website, and they have something called a real-time AI. They have something called a real-time AI generation tool. They have other things. They do video and enhancers, but I'll throw in the real-time AI generation tool. So this is an interesting way to think about how to use I'll use Midjourney because everybody probably here knows about that.
Right.
But what you do is you drive it. So I'm gonna use a simple one. We do product design. So I'm gonna, for a second, design a bottle. So we're gonna do a shampoo bottle. So the text is like you would in Midjourney, but it's much more simple. You don't have to drive it as far. And then you can use actual drawn things on the screen to control what the thing is doing on. So the thing on the left is me messing around, and the thing on the right is what it's producing in real time.
Gotcha.
So I'm going to take this background and I'm just going to make it a color. And then I'm going to use basic shapes to start to generate a composition. So we'll do like a darker floor, and then the shampoo bottle is going to be like a photo shoot. And then we'll actually start building out our shampoo bottle. And as you change things like color and references and things like that, it'll continue to like give you different versions of that thing. Okay.
Yeah.
So now let's put a top on it. And we'll make that blue. And then we're going to put a label on it. Whoops.
Gotcha.
I'm doing this on the fly, so
sure,
sorry.
Sure. Also, I would say that in this particular instance, when you're doing product stuff, the fact that you can have like your color palette to draw from, and you just you go, all my labels are this color, all my bottles are this color, all my tops are this color, and then you can just add those in with that particular color, and force those a little bit. Go okay, stick to these pretty close, or you know, or definite, and then yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, and then you could even, you know, the background wall or something like that, you could make it green if you wanted to, like wholly green, and then use it as a green screen to pop something in if you felt like doing that.
Exactly. So we're just doing like effectively Photoshop tools, but it's generating stuff off of that. So now this is where it gets really sick. So give me like I'll do it on the fly. Give me like a style, like a visual style of some sorts.
Oh, line drawing.
Well, not like that.
What do you mean?
One
film noir, like, you mean, or like Pixar?
Here, I'll do one that's Chinese porcelain.
Oh, okay, gotcha. For what it looks, what it's made of. Gotcha.
Yeah, so I'm over on my other screen. I'm looking for like a Chinese porcelain image. And this is just a bottle, so you can see. Can you see my like? I'm a little bit behind, but I can drop in an image as a weight.
Yeah.
And I can give it different weights and start to mix together things to start like stylize.
Right. Cross.
Okay. Now give me another one. Give me some just anything. Like it can be crazy.
Like a bust of Mozart.
Okay, so we'll just call it like marble bust. So I'll find like a marble bust. 1 second. I got into the wrong thing here. I got to do it again.
It happens. I know it well.
So
I mean, already
marble bust. Okay. So here's a marble bust I've got hanging over there. I'm going to throw that in, and we're at like 50-50 right now. We'll give the marble bust more and the Chinese porcelain less, or the opposite of that.
Right.
And you can start to see how real time you can start to mix together these things. So now here's where it gets really crazy. If I take the strength of the AI down, you can see how it gets closer and closer to what I actually drew.
Yeah.
And as you go up, it gets closer and closer to what it's coming up with. Now, in this window here, I can do a share screen of Photoshop, and I can draw in Photoshop anything I want, and it'll start to make that thing. I'm just going to do it like with a paintbrush with a tree next to it. All right, now in
Fucking
my,
hell.
I'm gonna take a paintbrush and I'm gonna like make it brown. Now it's really interesting because it likes to see things in the color that you would do, right?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna just draw a tree. I'm doing this with my mouse, so it starts to get.
Yeah.
And you'll see how. Let me get this down a little bit so it knows. You'll see how it like will let me control what it's doing.
Right. Oh my God. There it is. That's great.
Yeah. So let me put a pot down here. I think I'm starting to like, with it being on the stream, I'm like slowing it down a little bit. But
Sure. I mean, it's
so you
incredible already.
get the
Yeah.
idea how there are artists that are like full on controlling. Here, let me reduce these a little bit. They're full on controlling exactly what that thing makes.
Good Lord. Yeah.
Based on the drawings they're doing.
Right.
If
Are
that
you
makes
putting
any sense. So
real quick? Are you putting a prompt in there that says shampoo bottle, or are you just like?
Yes, I currently have shampoo bottles. So let's just change that. Let's do it a motor oil.
That dude just became your tree.
Motor oil bottle.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then let's put like a handle on it. I'm gonna just draw like a handle. Paintbrush, I think. It's a little bit, it's kind of slowing down a little because of the stream, but you get the idea. Here, let me drop this down. So the reason we use this is because one, it's real time.
Yeah.
And it's really more like an idea generator.
Yeah.
Where as you start to mix different concepts.
Yeah.
Here, I'll give it more of the Chinese porcelain as opposed to the motor oil and the bus.
Yeah.
And you can start to do some wacky ass stuff with this this thing. Sorry, let me go higher so it looks a little bit more clear. So the designers that I know that work with this stuff, they aren't like stealing people's stuff. They're using real images. They're using their own artwork, and they're weighting these things and creating designs in the same way that they would sketch.
Yes.
And then that sketch then moves forward and becomes a concept.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing is normally with a sketch, you might not put it into the right context. So if I was designing a shampoo bottle for, I don't know, Procter and Gamble.
Right.
Part of what makes that concept strong is its context, like what it looks like in the final ad. So at the front end of concept development, you can put it into environments that you want it to be in, and then contextually everything comes together, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So these are like ways of selling ideas that you would have taken, all kinds of time. I bring up Bob Seska because I could make this in Blender. We could like model this all out and make images and photorealistically render them.
Yeah.
We could do that. This is just a shortcut to get there. Right.
And especially if, again, you don't have access to a giant team like a corporation does, like a huge, you are now, what this does, I think really is it puts people on par with Coca-Cola or BlackRock or, or Realtor.com or whatever their thing is. Because as long as you want to actually participate in that process and you want to do the work, you don't need to hire 20 people at this stage. Maybe one day you will. Maybe you'll start a business that gets so big that you'll still integrate AI, but you'll use it in a way that will, your team uses it to do stuff, to game out stuff. But for the time being, it's just like Canva to some degree. Like I use Canva and Adobe Express. I only use Canva more often because its user interface is simpler than Adobe Express. But Adobe Express is going to get a giant leap as soon as they release Firefly sort of integration into it.
Yeah.
It already does stuff, but it's like it's going to get much smoother in probably another month. And once that happens, I'll just be talking to Adobe Firefly and go, "Hey, Firefly, I need a series of overlays for my live stream, that that are these basic shapes, and I need one for each day of the week, and I need one for each morning show. And Fridays I talk about AI, so give me one that's themed like that. And this is the layout, right? And I need a version where I green screen myself and a version where I don't, because of when I'm on the road or when I'm at home." And it will throw up a bunch of stuff, and I might like all of it or none of it, but I also might take what they made and go, okay, I like this, but I'm going to mess around with this, specifically. But the ability to, like, if I had a team working for me all the time that would make this kind of stuff for me, I wouldn't even have to think about it, and I could focus on what I'm actually doing, which is the show, right?
Yeah.
And
right.
that's
Or
for a lot
like
of business people.
you you spend time creating your scenes and creating your images in the background and stuff like that.
Right.
You can use what we do all the time, and maybe this is the part that everybody kind of loses track of, is we never use the thing that we produce as our final
Right.
thing. We always recreate it, and but we use it as our sketch concept.
Yeah.
And then we create our version of it manually. So the time savings was in the creation of the concepts and the ability to get them a little further along, so that when we go and show them to our customers can see the whole vision.
Yeah.
And we might have spent a lot more time on the front end creating that vision before. Now that's shortened. So we can, but we still are creating the end thing. So if we actually engineered that bottle and molded that bottle, it would not be the AI generated bottle. It'd be us actually modeling it for engineering purposes, for tooling purposes, and all that stuff.
Right.
And in that time in between, that's when you go check and make sure that you're not infringing on somebody's patent or infringing on their copyright or those things. And that's the responsibility that everyone already has.
Yes.
And that's a key aspect of this. Like you said with previous to this, if we copied somebody's shampoo bottle and spent all the time and put it on the market, somebody's going to send us a cease and desist.
Yeah, it's the same
and they're going to sue us.
Well,
it's the same thing.
That goes into, I think, the big story of the week for the idiots among us, myself included, sometimes, about the Scarlett Johansson situation. Now, for those that don't know, inspired, oddly enough, and I don't know why, it's like having a robot company inspired by Ex Machina. They were inspired by Her, which is this tragedy about a dude who falls in love with a chatbot on his phone, which has happened already with a couple of people, because we're human beings, and there's somebody somewhere who's fallen. I mean, go watch Lars and the Real Doll and understand that somebody somewhere has tried to marry a silicone love doll. So I don't know why we'd be surprised that something with a voice that remembers your favorite joke and your favorite movie and can quote it with you would be harder to fall in love with than something you inflate with a pump that comes with it. But whatever. Anyways, the inspired by Her, the people at OpenAI decided to add Scarlett Johansson's voice to ChatGPT. And then, so they asked her about it. And they said, hey, we'd love to use your voice in a kind of a Her kind of a way. And she said, no, I don't have time to even think about contractually what that would be right now, and blew them off. And then they came back to her right before they were about to launch 4.0 or 4 Omni. And they said, we'd really love to have your voice. And she gave them the same kind of answer and dropped out. And they used a woman who people think she sounds just like her, but she's a regular voice actress. She just has a very sultry, light voice. And people compared it to that. It was a close sound alike, I guess. And so Scarlett Johansson and her people are suing about that. And currently, the voice is called Sky. And the voice actress, through her agent, released a thing going, I don't think I sound particularly like Scarlett Johansson. But this woman had a deal. This woman, and might have involved, getting paid over a period of time for as long as her voice and based on its popularity. And if I was, I got to say, if I was Scarlett Johansson's people, I would say, absolutely, pay me in stock. because OpenAI's growth arc is impossible to chart right now, but it's Google level. At, whatever the price right now, if she's like 100,000 shares, like something like that, she could probably get 50. And then, oh my God, what that's worth in 20 years. It's absurd, right?
But that's her choice.
Yes,
Like
agreed.
she should have that choice,
And
and
she
she's
did.
built a brand
Mhm.
around her voice. She was in the movie,
Mhm.
and she obviously is in a lot of other movies. So it's her choice how she wants to accomplish that, or how she wants to handle that.
I agree.
Yeah.
And I'm glad she effectively did. That said, her voice isn't like Christopher Walken's or Arnold Schwarzenegger's. It's not that distinct, obviously, because they found another woman who speaks and it just used her natural voice and sounds just like her. You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
we're starting to get into the realm of like that music did, which is like what makes a piece of music distinctive, what makes a voice distinctive.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know that we've really defined that yet. So
yeah, no, I think we're playing catch up with it all over the place. I mean, look at the Under Pressure versus Ice Ice Baby fight when Vanilla Ice comes out and says, "Theirs goes dun 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 digga dun 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 digga dun dun," and ours goes dun 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 digga dun 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 digga dun dun. See, that was his argument in court.
Yeah.
Thank God he lost, but that was it. It was obviously a sample, and they obviously used more than 12 notes and the distinctive aspect of the song without paying for it, right? That was the issue. And by the way, early like sampling, they didn't give a shit. Like nobody got money. They were just flat out stealing it for years. And then somebody went, "Okay, hang on. You're taking our stuff and you're building whole new songs on it, and there's got to be," and they started effectively in another industry that didn't exist. Now artists were selling into a musical genre they didn't participate in. Their songs were becoming retrospectively powerful again because people wanted to hear the original as well, and they would get a licensing fee on top of it. It was great.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, in music, we have rules about people covering songs. We have rules about what that means and how you need to go interact with the original artist and things like that.
Right.
But we don't really have that in voices. In theory, Scarlett Johansson could go narrate a documentary or a movie, and then somebody else could have a documentary and find a voice actress that sounded enough like her. I mean, it's the same thing that just happened. And then the question is like, are they, by using this other voice that sounds close enough, are they piggybacking off of the Scarlett Johansson's fame or ability to generate income? And so in music we've defined that to some degree, but we haven't yet in voices, I guess you could say. I don't know if there are any test cases for that, but this is going to be a test case for sure.
I mean, if like on the one hand, I think the test case will be if they use your voice, they digitally recreate it one for one, and they don't get a sound alike that sounds like you and create a voice based on that. So they find somebody who sounds like Kiefer Sutherland, but a slightly less smoky version, and they record that guy, and it sounds like Kiefer Sutherland to the layperson, but it ain't. And the difference is that in this documentary that you're positing, do they credit Kiefer Sutherland and make people think he's the voiceover actor in it? Or do they go, "I just like this guy. I don't know why. He kind of sounds like Kiefer Sutherland." And I wonder if it is. And they look up IMDb. Nope. It's a sound alike. It's an AI or whatever. Okay. That's going to be the test case. That's something along those lines, I think. Be Aware is asking, what AI does Rob recommend for music creation ideas? I don't know if you even use
Hal, you're a better person. I'm not a music guy. So.
Yeah, I use the Suno one. There's also Udio, UDIO, which people are swearing up and down about right now. I have no reason to jump into Udio for this particular thing, because the one I use is good enough for the silly, stupid shit that I'm doing, which is just like fake jingles and stuff like that. Because again, I make music myself, so I don't need it to make real music. I need it to make all the music I would not make or cannot make, right?
There you go.
Yeah. I talked about that with Bob Seska on his podcast because he had a bunch of jingles made and it cost him a pretty penny and a lot of time and all that kind of stuff. And had it gone south, it might have been completely unusable. But I could sit there for, you know, in an hour and come up with 30 variations of my theme song in different music styles. And there they are, you know, they
Right.
all, you know, fully produced. So you could try both of them. Suno and Udio, UDIO. And again, like I said, Udio is newer, so people are chasing it around. But that happens with a lot of these things. There's a lot of slingshotting, I think, going on right now, too, which is people like there's a first one on the block. Then somebody comes out and does the same thing a little bit better. And then this one has been waiting on, they've got a secondary, they've learned a lot, and they've, you know, because they had a lot of early adopters, and they're able to leapfrog over the other one because they have a lot more to draw from as a user base than the newer one, and sometimes end up with a better service by slingshotting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
There's two questions, or there's one question that Andrea put in, and then like I want to maybe talk a little bit more. So 56 Nick Rich.
Yeah.
We'll maybe go through this quick. My query: will AI get to the point where it makes decisions about law and order? Actually, AI is pretty good at the language-based AI is pretty good at dealing with the nuances of law and definitions and context inside of that. So for a lot of things like making a will or things that are sort of more mundane law practices, there will, yes, absolutely. And then, you know, there could be a future where we decide that maybe the properly trained AI model would actually be better at making decisions if everybody agreed to its sort of baseline ability to not be swayed, if that makes any sense.
Well, look at a great example would be Judge Engoron in the civil case before they got, you know, ruling on basically the merits before they got to the punitive stage. The punitive stage was really what that trial was all about, because it's up to human beings to decide, you know, the judge in this case, or a jury if she hadn't checked the wrong box. It was up to them to decide just how bad it was. That's a moral level judgment. But the deciding about whether something was filed late or early or wrong, or, you know, or it was, you know, whatever a filed document contains some information it's not supposed to or not is clear. It is, if a human being looks at it and goes, yeah, that's his signature, that's what it said, this is the wrong date, he backdated this because obviously this check went out before this, and so we know that. Okay, AI can decide that as well, and it can do it far quicker. And when it comes to like white collar crime in particular, it can take it, you know, the Donald Trumps of the world in a year are fucked in this area. Like, and it's going to be difficult, like, for business people to kind of catch up with the kind of like gray area fudging of the books that they were doing, because it's going to be a bit of a hard ass. It'll learn to not be a hard ass internally if you're using like a version of QuickBooks AI that goes, all right, I understand what you mean. Like, okay, this is entertainment. But if the IRS, we think it is. If the IRS says no, then no. And you could set a 80%, 60%, 20% agreement, and then it can argue with the IRS going, yeah, I have to take these assholes to dinner. I'll never get another job, right? That kind of thing. That will be a possibility. It will do that kind of stuff. But when it comes to, like, a physical altercation or a gunfight or car theft or any of that kind of shit, there'll be a myriad of things that will be established as true, that details in the case that will be just kept and measured for the judgment phase that human beings will make. But when it comes to financial crimes, it's a binary question anyways. That's why Engoron ruled before. He was just like, yep, this qualifies as a crime. This doesn't. This they have enough evidence for. They don't have enough evidence for this. Check, 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 check. Let's just move on to the penalization phase. And that's it'll do shit like that really well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So then I'm gonna cover something that Tracy Rose really upset about with
Okay.
us. So she's basically getting to the idea of art versus like commercial art versus fine art.
Sure.
So Rob, you're still not grasping why artists have a problem with AI. Not all of us do art on a computer. So I like we are grasping.
Yeah.
I think with all due respect, we are grasping what artists do.
Right.
Um, Artists. So if you're trying to sell art to someone who goes and buys a painting at Home Goods,
Mm-hmm.
you're never going to sell them your art. Like they don't
Yes.
care. But there are a whole bunch of people who do care. And the thing that they're going to go in parallel paths, right? So you if you love jazz, you don't care if AI is going to make a good jazz song. You're going to go to a jazz bar and you're going to listen to people actually play jazz.
Yeah.
You're going to go to a comedy show and see Hal speak to you in real time so that you can see that his talent is
Genuine.
improv and being in the same room.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that the experience of that art is not lost with AI. So as a fine artist, you absolutely don't need to work on a computer. As a commercial artist, you probably do because things go to a print shop or they go to a physical place and get carved out by a CNC machine.
Yep.
But as a fine artist, like you're going to make a painting or an actual photograph, and those two things are separate things.
Mm-hmm.
So as an artist, you still have to market yourself as an artist, and I contend that AI actually separates you out even more clearly
Right.
from what is generated not by your hand. And I'm a firm believer that people will that this could be a movement where actually it brings people back to understanding what it means to be handmade
Right.
and actually want to have that. But we're in a world where people want to go to Walmart and buy a t-shirt for $5 versus an American made t-shirt for $8. So that's the problem, I think.
Yeah. That's a way bigger problem than final. Because again, okay, I'll give you an example. Okay, so China's trying to catch up with their AI and robot or whatever, and they have one that is basically a printer. And what it does is its arms are programmed to do calligraphy, and it knows certain characters. So if you ask it for the character, it will paint it. It'll dip the paint and do the pressure on the paper and do that. Okay. And it will do it relatively well, but it's effectively the same mechanics as a printer. It is not any more advanced than that. It's not even ChatGPTing its way through it. It just looks like a robot that's painting. Now, what they're doing with those paintings is they're doing those Chinese character scrolls that you see with the two big ones that you could buy in Chinatown, and they've got rows and rows of them. Okay, currently, those are done by students. So when I went to China the first time in 2001, I was there for a month. And I was in, Beijing most of the time, and then I went to Shanghai and then Hong Kong. And when I was in Beijing, that's where I met these three college girls who were selling these scrolls on the street. And my Chinese wasn't nearly as good back then. I was really stumbling, but the whole point was to get there and immerse myself and learn quickly. And they ended up following me around and helping me shop, and they're one of them was famously the one who at the food cart, when I asked what meat was in the bao, said buenti, which means don't ask. And because it wasn't a person, but they weren't sure. So anyways, the point being is that they were selling these scrolls on the street. Okay, these painted scrolls. They didn't give a shit about the image. They weren't poetic, ninjas, or Confucianists, painting the ninjas are Japanese, painting these scrolls out, and hanging them up and going, yes, my words of wisdom. They were just recreating old ones as a class project that they had to do, and to pay for their schooling, they would sell these things. And by the way, this is high school, community college level. That's what these kids do. So, we have, in the United States, we have 12 years of free schooling. They have 8. Once you hit the 8th grade, you're on your own. And so to pay for the next few years of schooling, they do a lot of this stuff. Okay. Now there's a robot that does that painting, and in Chinatowns all over the world where you buy these scrolls, it will be this thing that's painting them out. But it doesn't care any more than these students did. They were just trying to pay for their schooling and sell touristy kind of things. This is not interrupting the fine art of a master calligrapher who you go and he writes whatever you want, or you ask him a Confucianist question and he draws something both poetic and beautiful in watercolor, and water strokes. So the same thing is sort of true of AI, which is digital media, and a painter or a sculptor or something, like, which it cannot do currently. Maybe one day they'll have a robot that's able to paint with oil and fake Picassos, but they'll still be fake Picassos, just as much as if they came off a printer. And they'll still be original to that idea.
Well, let me pause you there. They're already like, I'll call them topographical printers that can print an oil painting like an inkjet printer. So again, like, if you choose to buy the inkjet printed oil painting, you're not buying it from a human being who painted it. Like, and these are markets that exist. So it's really on the customer. Like, like, you choose what to purchase.
What's your standard, right?
Yeah, totally. And these are problems that existed this entire time. Like, artists have always struggled to figure out a way to sell their work and
mass produce it.
A lot, like, I see a lot of comments go by. Hal and I are both artists, and we both make money and we make a living doing our art, and you can define that however you want. It is what it is, right?
Yep.
And I guarantee, I'm speaking for myself right now, every single client that I've ever worked with is trying to figure out a way to get rid of me. Somehow, some way. They're like, wait, you're going to charge me what to do that? I can go onto my computer and I can draw a logo for $5, And so every single person I talk to is figuring out a way to get rid of me.
Yep.
And so we do 3D renderings, right? If I want to quote unquote automate 3D renderings, you go spend a quarter of the price and have somebody in Ukraine do it, or you spend a quarter of the price and have somebody in India do it.
All the Korean people who work on the Marvel movies in the visual effects artists, the ones who are painting all the colors and the reflective surfaces, they've got rows and rows of people working in South Korea and in other places, India, for pennies on the dollar compared to their American counterparts or European counterparts. That's exactly the same thing. Yeah.
So the problem isn't AI doing this. The problem is that people choose to go do the cheaper method.
Yes.
And it's the same thing. It's like, we buy American. Well, that means something. It means that we have to have an infrastructure in America. We have to be able to produce it. We have to train people out of high school to make those things. And all of that stuff is going to cost a different price than what the thing coming from China is. And unfortunately, we chose to buy the thing from China for 40 years.
Yep.
So,
and we don't have to anymore.
Like, the problem is not AI. The problem is us. And that's what we need to concentrate on fixing.
Well,
that's also just my opinion, though.
Yes. And I also think that, like, increasingly, there will be a premium on human-made stuff. When it used to be that, like, the Nike Whoosh, famously, somebody bought it for like $17 or something like that. Yeah. You could create logos like that and just flip through them now using AI. You just go, give me a logo for a shoe company that represents, Zeus's lightning bolt. Give me, or whatever. Yeah.
I'll go one step further, and there are sort of like these websites that you can go to that are sort of freelance. They're like freelance Ubers. So you say, I'd like to make a logo and I want to spend $250, and you bid on it, and you'll get probably 400 logos back from random people in random places around the world, and you choose one and you pay that person $400, right? Like, that's no different than AI right now. Like, you didn't go to an American designer and the American designer did not quote you $1,500 or $2,000. You chose not to do that.
Yeah.
You chose to go to this other site and spend $150 or whatever.
Yes.
Like, so that's the problem.
Well, that's yeah. Well, also one of the big stories I saw about AI, recently was the damage it was doing to Fiverr. That
Right.
Fiverr itself.
Fiverr is yeah, there you go. That's the one of the sites.
Yeah, so Fiverr, for a lot of people know what it is, but if you don't, it's a site where you can kind of randomly go on there, and if you need something made, something coded, a drawing, a logo, a T-shirt design, something like that, or even indeed something physically done like sewn or whatever. There's a bunch of stuff on there that Fiverr, like Etsy, started out as this kind of like hands-on kind of a thing. I need somebody that has hands that can make this thing happen, and then increasingly became a digital thing, especially post-COVID, right? So that part of it, though, the biggest part of it, just like the biggest part of Etsy, which was somebody designing you a T-shirt or something, has now gotten to a situation where you can make 1,000 of them and just put them on a Teespring store and of your own, and just download your own shirt for cost.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
That's the issue as we keep going forward. Now, are there differences in quality? Absolutely. Like this Rock the Vote shirt that I'm wearing is not an overlay print kind of thing. It's a higher quality, which requires people right now. Won't for a while, but right now it does. So if you want something like that, I've had this shirt since, I don't know, 95. But to make a shirt like this that will last and it's got quality or whatever is still involving humans. Maybe it won't at some point. They'll get a better process going on where they don't have to make 1,000 of them to break even on whatever. And we're getting increasingly close. I'm sure somebody asks ChatGPT later on today how to do it. It'll tell you, right? But that still, the fine artist will have more of a premium because there are elements that computers can't do on their own unless they have robotic hands, and even then it's a waste of that use. Again, these robots are going to be doing dangerous, stupid, repetitive shit much, for years before they ever end up painting things in any real sense. I mean, there'll be one, just like there's I filmed in, where was it? Shit, I'm in so many airports lately, I can't even remember where I transferred through. It might have been North Carolina. There's a cappuccino robot. It's a coffee robot. Not a big deal. It's like a giant Keurig thing, but it uses real beans and all that kind of stuff. And so it grinds it through the thing. And there's these hands and this thing, and then it knows where the stuff is that you want, and it adds a splash of milk if you ask for it, and it whatever. And then it puts a cup on the thing or whatever, and it sets it down a thing, and then you open up the thing and you take it out. It's a vending machine. Still a vending machine. And it's not a barista. It's just mixing ingredients. And it's not going to do anything like go, hey, I remember you. You like this. Yet. Eventually it might. But that's not something that people strive for. Very people think, like, I'd love to be a bartender or something. Like, AOC was a bartender. That wasn't her be-all, end-all. That was what she did to pay her way through school. That's going to happen for certain people. They'll still be able to do it because you'll want a drink mixed by a person while you have a conversation at a bar. But it's not anybody's dream job that's getting knocked, out of the realm of possibilities. Not what they're like, this is what, once I get my bartender job, then I'm set for life. Like, nobody really does that, except in the Old West when you live to be 37.
Absolutely. So I think of it like this. So we have an infrastructure in place that delivers to us the things that we as consumers consume, right? And the path that takes, we experience it through COVID. It goes through a system, and that system is what it currently is. COVID broke it because of issues with things coming overseas and stuff like that. So the things that we that we aspire to have, which is local manufacturing, local creation of stuff, individual, like you could go back to like the old arts and craft, the concept of the arts and crafts movement, where everything stayed close to your house. Technology is allowing for that to happen now.
Yeah.
Technology is allowing for the things that we've always said we wanted to start to happen. And we have to think about it in that way, in my opinion, and utilize it in a way that gives us the thing that we've always wanted.
Yes.
And that is empowering us. It's going to empower
Yes,
us. It's not going to take it away.
No. If anything, more people will have an opportunity. The thing I think of lately, especially when I've been looking at all this stuff, and I'm just waiting for the generative video part and the generative film part to catch up to where it's really at a professional level. Because think of all the movies that died because people did not have the funds or the means or the wherewithal, or the studio did not have the resources or time to actually make it. They just didn't. And now you're like, you could speak your entire movie into existence and go, this is what I would do. The difference is I would put this actor in. Okay, here's a scan of that actor. Okay, and I put this actor in. And you have studios that have like contracts with people, and they'll go, okay, you can sign off. They get to say, we got 5 movies with you this year. Here's the 35 that you could be in, and it won't cost you any time at all. And then you could be in a play on Broadway while you're making a film, because the film is being made with a digital version of you, because it's a blockbuster cop show kind of a layout, as opposed to the kind that requires the fine, micro movements of your eyes to really sell the emotion that's going on, right? You can make those kind of movies a lot quicker and a lot cheaper and still have your personality and stuff in them while you're doing a play that you give a shit about on Broadway at the same time. That's incredibly, and again, people will only be interested in seeing you do it if you can really do it. So, while that movie's out, they'll come see your play, or they'll make a pilgrimage to come see your play, or you'll be able to tour with your play, or they'll have a hologram version of your play that if you can't, that in areas that would have never had the play ever, they can watch it live from New York, in their little theater, projected onto this while everybody's wearing AR glasses, like it's really happening. That's coming, right. And that's an extraordinary thing, and that I'm totally for. I know we went a little bit over, but I want to, yeah, go ahead.
There's one other thing. We don't need to talk about it today, but it probably should be a concept that we continue to talk about a lot, and that is the idea of, AI stealing from individual artists.
Yes.
And yes, absolutely. That's what needs to be regulated, mm-hmm. is how stuff is trained. That's what we keep saying, is the training
right.
side is how the training side is how you regulate how things are used, and the litigation side on the end is how you figure out how things are sold. So it's two separate areas, and so right now, if somebody steals your work, that's the Scarlett Johansson thing. She's working out through the courts, yep. how she can protect or make money off of her likeness being used, essentially. Yep. And individual artists. I mean, we get individual artists / inventors all the time, and they come to us with an idea. They're worried about it getting stolen. There are systems in place for you to move through that process and try to work through it and not have
mm-hmm.
protect it, basically. So it's on the front end. That's what elections are for, electing people that understand how to think about these things, so mm-hmm. that they set up the rules on the regulation side in the front end, and on the back end, it's enforcement.
Yeah.
Of those things, and that again is no different than what currently exists. China has been stealing our IP for
right.
40 years.
Yep.
So,
we put up with it because it was cheaper.
Exactly. And we got to stop doing that.
Yes, we have to stop doing that. And then what you'll have is people will eventually develop a system within their own creative process where AI can help them get further along in something. And if they hate it, it's their decision about going, okay, this isn't what I'm looking for. I need it to be like this. And then they'll get better at designing their stuff directly. And that interaction with the AI to make it into a movable, functional model for something will happen a lot quicker and on a lower scale than if you had you had to be a robber baron to even get a shot at doing any of this. Because again, all technology is deflationary. It gets faster and cheaper. That's all it does. Like if I feel like that would be my line if I was Reese in Terminator. It gets faster and cheaper. That's all it does.
Just wait. I'm about to get faster and cheaper.
Yeah,
then I'll kill you.
Yeah, right. Come with me if you want to realize your dreams, right? So, but
All right.
yeah. So appreciate it, brother. Thank you so much for helping us, navigate this. And Kriya, I'm going to have to look into.
Try it. So you have to play with it to like feel it.
Yeah.
You start to get a feel for how it plays with you.
Yeah.
And it's the real time aspect is really interesting. And then unlike Midjourney, where you kind of like poke at it with words and then it kind of gives you something and you wait back and forth.
Yeah.
It's not saving all those things, which is I think is kind of cool.
Right.
It's just continually like updating. And as you see those things, it helps you learn on the fly.
Right.
That's what we use to sketch. And
Gotcha.
It's our new way of sketching.
That's great. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much,
Cool.
brother. Appreciate it.
Thank you,
And,
everybody.
I look forward to next week because, it's so topsy-turvy right now. You and I both know that most of what we're talking about right now, as far as the technology of it, some of it's going to stick around. Like ChatGPT, Kriya will stay around, but they'll get better iterations of it. But they're also going to be just like fucking tech monkey wrenches being thrown into life. And the robots are coming, kids, in a great way. One of the most beautiful things I saw in all of this conversation was in ChatGPT. I think it was their demo where they were showing how Omni can see through your phone, and there was a blind guy outside of Buckingham Palace asking it what was in front of him, and it first asked, "Is the monarch in house or whatever?" Because of where the flag is, it told him, and then he was like, "Who's around me?" And it's like, "Okay, your dog is to your right. There's this, that, and there's Sam across the street. You know him. He's in your pictures. So if you wave, he'll see you just to your left." And for somebody who's blind to have that always available.
Yeah.
24/7.
Image recognition. That's what your eyes do for you. Your eyes and your brain. Image recognition.
Imagine that person had to call somebody and say, "Hey, I need to go get something at the store. Can you go with me?" Or can if they needed a ride along for any stuff. Now they have one that never gets tired, never gets bored, never is annoyed with them, never abuses them, never takes advantage of them, simply does what it's supposed to do. And that is going to increasingly happen. So anyways, love you, brother. Thank you so much for hopping on.
Thank you.
And
good luck. I think you're probably solid enough for tomorrow's show, right?
I think it works.
You're okay, right?
Yeah. I'm going to have to make another screen so I can get two people on at once, but we'll see. Yeah.
You're good. I think you're good.
Yeah, I think so.
All right. Good luck, brother.
Thank you, brother. Okay. So
bye, chat. Thank you.
All right. Cheers. There he goes, ladies and gentlemen. And thanks, Rob. Really appreciate it. And you guys, I adore you. And I will see you later this afternoon. I'm going to do today's afternoon show will be a little bit shorter than normal. I hope that's okay. Because I've got stand up tonight and I don't know when I'm going to actually. Like, I'm exhausted, but I'm not going to be able to fall asleep right now because of the show. So I'm going to try to get a nap in because I got 2 shows to do today after this and a show to do early tomorrow morning before I drive back. But just understand, be gentle. That's all I'm asking. Okay. See you later.